It is March and it is time to do another 2022 book haul revisit. 2022 was the first year that I started my RAB spreadsheet, which is my recently acquired books spreadsheet. I had been on BookTube for 2 years, well, almost 2 years, and I was getting a lot of books. I was getting books at book sales, which I always have done. I was getting books at Little Free Libraries, which I always have done, but I was seeking out more books because I was excited about BookTube, because I was hearing a lot about different books, and because I was learning to read more diversely. My reading habits were changing. I was reading more and more. After 2021, which was the first full year I was on BookTube, I decided that I really needed to start keeping track of the books that were coming into the house, because a lot of books were coming into the house. So I started my RAB spreadsheet, my recently acquired books spreadsheet, where I wrote down every single book that came into the house. I wrote down where I had gotten it, how much it cost, and I also kept track of when I read that book, or if it got unhauled, or if it was put into one of my collections that go on my red shelf, or if it was put down in the basement because it was something that I wanted to keep but I wasn't going to read right away. So I also started making recently acquired book hauls. I don't particularly like book hauls. Book hauls are not something that I normally watch on BookTube. I think that the way that book hauls are presented on BookTube a lot of times gives an unrealistic expectation of the overconsumption of BookTube and how booktubers need to be constantly consuming new books, or need to be buying things, need to be spending money. And of course we all want to support our authors that we love, our publishers that we love, but there are lots of ways to do that without overconsumption. So book hauls are not my favorite. I don't usually do book hauls. In the year of 2022, because I was keeping track of these books, I thought it would be a good idea to haul all the books every month that I had gotten. And now, 2 years later, we are going back and seeing if I've actually read the books that I hauled in 2022, what happened to them, if I've unhauled them, if I've DNF'd them, and we are revisiting my 2022 book hauls. So we've already done my birthday book haul, which for my birthday I usually do go to some indie bookstores and used bookstores and try to support the used bookstores that I love in my area. We've also looked at my January book haul for 2022. So the video that we're going to watch today was published in April, but is actually my February book haul without my birthday books. So it's a little confusing, but you're gonna get the hang of it. So at the beginning of all these haul videos, I also did some Little Free Library searching and some Little Free Library tours. We're gonna go ahead and skip ahead to the haul itself. Am I over enough so that you can see it? Okay. So I talk a little bit in the intro about how I thought I was gonna acquire less books in February than I did in January, but with my book haul, with my birthday book haul, and with this one I ended up acquiring way more. The first book that we're looking at is A Guest of Honor by Nadine Gordimer. I had never heard of Nadine Gordimer when I picked this book up, but she is a South African author and I am super interested in her work. I have not read this book. It is unread, and I have picked up other books of hers that we might see in these haul revisits. So we're gonna mark them read, unread, or other, and other could be unhaul, could be basement box books, could also be collections. Usually vintage books that I pick up with the intention of reading them at some point, but they go into a collection that I already have, so they are not counted on my TBR. One of the reasons that I'm doing these rehaul visits is because my TBR is very, very, very large, and I am trying to pare it down, so I am trying to see like what my reading habits are and what I can change about how I pick up books in the future. The next book is a collection book, and really this is a vintage book. It's not a book that I plan on reading at all ever, but it was really cool, and that is a nonfiction by famous sci-fi author Isaac Asimov. It is called The Human Body. Apparently Asimov did write quite a few nonfiction science-related books, so this is the first of several that I think I've picked up. This is actually currently on my shelf, right? I don't know if you can see it. No, you can't see it. It's above this shelf, but it just sits face out on my red shelf because it's beautiful and it's interesting. The next book I have not read. It is Truman Capote's Other Voices, Other Rooms, and it is a collection of short stories. I say in this video, and it is still true, that I've only read one Truman Capote book, which is Breakfast at Tiffany's. I do love that novella. I think it's great, and I do want to read more Truman Capote. This is on my TBR, and it is in my short story collection area. Oh, we are not doing good on this one. The next book is also a book that I have not read, White Ivy by Susie Yang. I heard maybe Mercedes at Mercy's Bookish Musings talk about this, but I've heard other booktubers talk about it as well, and it is a Chinese author, and it's about, I think, like beauty and identity and how those things are wrapped up and the emphasis that's put on them in Chinese culture. I think it's Chinese. It could possibly be Korean, but I think it's Chinese. And it sounded really interesting. I heard someone once say that this is a great one to read, like paired with Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. So I've kind of been putting off reading both of those books so that I could read them kind of in the same time period so that I could compare and contrast. Okay, so the next book I have read, finally, our first read book in this revisit, and that is The Bean Trees by Barbara Kingsolver. This is the only Barbara Kingsolver I've ever read. I read this last year for the TBR Spin, and I really, really liked this book. It was about a young woman who grows up in a very small rural town in the middle of America and decides that she needs to escape poverty and abuse, so she packs up her stuff as soon as she can after high school and goes on the road. She ends up in Tucson, Arizona, and she finds a community there and a family there. It's a very simply written book that was written, I think, in the 70s or 80s, but it is very timely for today. It talks about child abuse. It talks about the lives of Indigenous people and how they are marginalized by the US government. It talks about immigration and the horrible policies that the US has about immigration. And so it's interesting to see a book that was written 40 years ago and that takes place 40 years ago talking about so many issues that are really, really current that you would hope would be solved by now and that are not anywhere near getting solved. The next book I have also read, okay, we're doing better, and it was my favorite book of 2023. It is The Removed by Brandon Hobson. I distinctly remember finding this in a very wobbly little free library. It is a Native American author and a Native American story. It follows a family. When the family was young, they tragically lost one of their sons to police violence. So this book tells that story of Ray Ray and how he was shot by police and how that came about, but also tells the story of each family member now and how that event in their past has changed every single one of their lives and changed the trajectory of their life as a family together. The next book is Unread. That is Space Opera by Catherine M. Valenti. I actually bought this one like online used because I'd heard so much about Catherine M. Valenti's work, and this book in particular was compared to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which, as we all know, is my all-time favorite book. So I wanted to pick that one up. I have not read that one yet, unfortunately. I think it's one of those ones that because I wanted it so much but then didn't read it right away has become like a weirdly intimidating read. I also think that it's going to be humorous, at least that's what it says on the tin, that it is like a funny space opera, and I don't usually read humorous books. The next book I have read, that is Day World Rebel by Philip Jose Farmer. I actually got this one used online as well, and then my dad gave me like 3 copies of this book 2 years later or a year later. Not 2 years later, that would be now. So I was disappointed that I bought it, but it is a very cute vintage hardcover, so I did like it. The Day World books are a sci-fi trilogy written by Philip Jose Farmer, who was a classic sci-fi author in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And Day World is a future time where the world's become so overpopulated that people only get to live one day of the week. So you might be a Monday person, a Tuesday person, a Wednesday person, etc., etc. The first book follows one man who can daybreak, and he actually lives a different life for each day of the week. So he is able to not go into stasis for the other days of the week and live Live, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. Day World follows his story, and then in Day World Rebel, we see the consequences that happened in the first book and continue to follow his journey to find out if people really need to be living this way in the future. The next book I have not read and has gone on my collections, that is Spider's Web, a novel by Agatha Christie. I believe this one is a play that Agatha Christie wrote and then someone novelized after her death. For all the Agatha Christie books that we see in these revisits, I'm only reading the Miss Marple series and I'm reading them in order. So I pick up every vintage Christie book that I see because I love vintage Christie books, and I do plan to read her entire catalog at some point. But they just go on my collections, they go on my red shelf. They are right here. But I have been reading all the Miss Marples on audio, so I don't strictly need to have a copy of the book when I'm reading them. The next book is an unhaul. So this is Nikki French, Sunday Silence. I know that Jen Campbell really loves Nikki French, who is a writing duo. Grace Reeds, was that her name? Grace Reeds, who I wish she would come back. I love her so much. But anyway, she loves the Nikki French books. Sunday Silence is in a series by Nikki French, which each book is a day of the week, which is funny that we also got Day World in this haul. There's some connections there. But Sunday Silence is actually the last one. So the week starts on Monday and ends on Sunday. So I picked this one up because I'm interested in reading Nikki French's books, but I didn't want to start the books out of order, so I went ahead and unhauled this one. I have yet to find any other Nikki French books. I wonder if people just really, really love their books, or if not a lot of people in the US pick them up, or what, but I am hoping still that I will find this series and I can start it. Ooh, the next book is unread, unfortunately, but it is one that I still want to read, and that is Sing Unburied Sing, a novel by Jesmyn Ward. I remember being so excited to find this book at a Goodwill. It is a hardcover library edition. I still have this on my want to read. I don't actually know what this is about, except that I know that Jesmyn Ward writes books about Black life in the South, and specifically in New Orleans, so I'm definitely interested in reading basically all of her books, but I also know that all of her books are super heavy and that it is a right time kind of book for me. Ooh, okay, interesting. The next book is interesting. I've started a new category. So the last book, I think it's the last book. Is it the last book? Yeah, so the last book in this revisit is While Justice Sleeps by Stacey Abrams. I found this one in a little free library near my house, and this is unread, but it is a DNF. I actually tried reading this earlier this year and I DNF'd it. I will be doing a video of all my DNFs eventually. I've been trying to DNF more in 2024. DNF more in 2024. So this one is by politician Stacey Abrams, but this is like a political thriller. And I really had no idea what it was about except for that. When I started reading it, I think I got about 50 pages in and it just was not for me. So out of that haul, we have 12 books. I have read 3 of them. Unread, but still in my TBR, are 5 books. I unhauled 1 without reading it, 2 went on to my collections, and 1 was a DNF. So very interesting. A lot of mixed things. Definitely not a lot of read books from February, but if we compare that to my birthday book haul, I did read more off of that haul. So there were more books that I have already read from that month in 2022. But yeah, really interesting. That was a good one. Let me know if you think I should prioritize any of them. One of the things that I've been doing with these haul revisits is making a priority read list. There was nothing on here really, except maybe space opera, that I think needs to go on the priority reading list. But let me know if you think I should prioritize any of these books. Let me know if you've read any of them and what your thoughts were. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!